We learned a lot of new information today about the terror attack on Bourbon Street.
Yeah, WWL investigator Mike Perlstein has been tracking the attacker's steps and moves. So, Mike, in the studio now, what have you learned today that's different from what we knew yesterday?
Well, first of all, the briefing this morning by law enforcement led by the FBI Assistant Director of Anti-Terrorism came from Quantico outside of D.C., FBI headquarters, and he provided a more precise timeline matching some of the things that we had been hearing in the direct aftermath. And it starts with the placement of bombs at least 2 locations in that hour between midnight and 1. Remind you that the attack with the truck and the shootout with police was recorded at 3:15. So in those hours before that, this terror suspect allegedly planted a couple of bombs. Those were found after the attack. Law enforcement first came across one at Bourbon in Orleans in a cooler wrapped with duct tape, and apparently it was a form of a pipe bomb, described as homemade, a little crude, but you pack anything with explosives, nails, screws, and other sharp objects, and you have the ability to blow it up. It can do a lot of damage. Later, that led to a wide search for other coolers, devices, or suspicious objects. They found one a little further away over on Decatur in Toulouse, closer to Jack's Brewery and Jackson Square. They blew that up. Now, once that started, we did start hearing about, including from the FBI itself, that they were looking that this suspect did not act alone, that others may have been involved, and they did a street-by-street search. They called it going through a grid looking for other suspicious objects. They found at least 2 that they detonated with the bomb squad that turned out not to be explosive devices. Eventually, that effort spread to many other city buildings, anything that looked suspicious. They scrambled to check a cooler that was in the French Market, many blocks away in the lower French Quarter. That turned out to be a false alarm. They then started expanding all the way down into the Bywater, the St. Roch Market, which is a city building that was cleared. They briefly looked at Café du Monde. So we now are able to kind of piece together from the information given out by the FBI and what we were being told by law enforcement at the time as to the path, tracks, and timing of this terror suspect.
Oh my God, the Department of Homeland Security issued a warning after the attack that happened in Germany at the Christmas market about these type of attacks potentially happening in the States. One of the things they also mentioned was this was a lone wolf attack. And some people say that this is different from other terrorist attacks. A lone wolf attack that is inspired by ISIS. We have no proof that this man is directly connected to ISIS, just further claims. I mean, can you talk more about that?
So what we have heard so far, and this again came from the FBI Assistant Director, that it looks like this suspect had somehow become radicalized, had sworn some allegiance to ISIS in a video that he made and posted and has been obtained by the feds. And that is what they were going on. Now, they've also obtained some cell phones and a laptop. They're combing through that. We haven't really heard about the results of what they found as far as any connections and contacts and communications he may have had. There's a big difference between being a lone wolf inspired by or radicalized by ISIS. He had an ISIS flag on the truck, but he may not have been getting orders or coordinating with any terror group, ISIS or otherwise, and simply being inspired or radicalized by them. What is unusual, and I know that they were concerned about this, which is after the initial attack, which was the truck, plowing it down, Bourbon Street, tragically taking the lives of 14 people, that these bombs might have been designed by him, according to the FBI now saying he acted alone, to be detonated at a time when first responders were coming to the scene, to be detonated and create a sort of a second wave of terror. Those bombs were not detonated. We know that the suspect was killed, right there on the scene as he got out of the truck and got in a shootout with police. So we still don't know all of the sort of the mechanisms of the bombs itself, whether they were going to be sort of remote controlled to go off on a timer. There is still questions surrounding the Mandeville Airbnb where the suspect was staying. It turns out to be just one night, since he rented that truck on the 30th, came here on New Year's Eve, went about planning the bombs and springing his attack.
And questions about the fire at that house too as well.
Exactly. So that's another thing that in this case, the local head of the ATF, Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, said, look, we're still investigating. We have our experts at that scene to determine, was it on a timer that started a fire? Did something just spark, like a pressure cooker that finally reached a boiling point and exploded? Because that happened, and that fire was reported at about 5 a.m., some 2 hours after the truck massacre, the shootout, and the suspect was long deceased when that fire started. So still some unanswered questions, but obviously they have the experts on bombs and explosives further adding pieces to this puzzle with a lot of parts. And I will say that it seems like in a relatively quick period of time, they have pieced together quite a bit. And we were reporting from the FBI itself, accomplices did not act alone. That quickly changed with the investigation, their ability to obtain the video. And I can tell you, it was kind of interesting. People who were watching the video were seeing people handling the coolers, which were apparently sealed in some kind of duct tape, and even moving one of them, the one at Bourbon in Orleans, which led to massive speculation and even very specific details that they were looking for 3 men and a woman because they were seen on a video moving the cooler.
Right.
But it turns out they were ruled out, not suspicious, and now they're calling the suspect a lone wolf.
Okay, thank you, Mike.